advisement if you're considering going down there. That's City Hall, where they'll do all the ceremonies and everything else. The Canyon of Heroes, this place where legends have been celebrated for decades and decades in this country, and today it will be for the New York Knicks. In the meantime, for the rest of the NBA, life goes on. And let's do a windy watch, because as we get closer to the NBA draft, we are also getting closer to a self-imposed Milwaukee deadline to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo. What do we know right now?
Yeah, so far, from what I am told, the Bucks have yet to receive an offer that they're willing to accept for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is somewhat mirroring what happened at the trade deadline last February, Greeny, where they had the market open, didn't agree to a deal, and ended up keeping Giannis. And while there is this deadline of the draft, and I am told that they intend to try to trade him by the draft, I think it's possible there's some percentage chance that they don't find a deal that they like. Miami has been the team that's been most aggressive, I think, in trying to get him, but they've got 7 or 8 different pieces they could trade, none of them what I consider super premium, and I think the Bucks probably want all of them.
So if they don't find a deal that they like, Tim, then what happens?
I mean, I just hope this saga ends by the draft for everybody involved. This has been not just months in the making, but really it's dragged on for years. And look, there's a lot of focus on Miami. You're hearing a lot about Boston. To me, I could see a team swooping in, a mystery team swooping in and stealing Giannis. This kind of reminds me, it's a different time of the NBA calendar, but it kind of reminds me of the Donovan Mitchell trade talks, where it was all about New York. What are the Knicks going to give up? What can the Knicks hold on to? You did not hear a peep about the Cleveland Cavaliers until the deal was done and Donovan Mitchell was heading to Cleveland.
Now, so that said, do you think that there is a world, Tim, in which Giannis remains a Buck through next week?
I mean, there's always a world. Again, this thing has been dragging on for years. Again, it's just time. It's just time for everybody involved. It's time for Giannis to move on. It's time for the Bucks to kind of take back control of their franchise. It's one thing when you're clinging to hope of contending. They're nowhere close to contending. This chapter just needs to end.
I think I agree with you. I think most people agree with you. But I can see them not wanting to give him up for less than they think they can get. Winman, there's another superstar whose name gets thrown into this thing now. What is the latest as far as Jaylen Brown's potential involvement in this? And where do we stand with him?
Yeah, one of the most dicey words in the entire NBA is the word offer. Okay, this starts fights, the word offer. All right, so the word emanating out of Boston is that Jaylen Brown has not been offered for anybody. Okay, and so that's the story that the Celtics have, and they are sticking to it. Now, have the Celtics and Bucks talked? I believe that they have. If they consummate a deal, would it involve Jaylen Brown? I believe that it would. But there's also the prickly thing about whether or not the Bucks would want to keep Jaylen Brown or whether they would want to move him on in such a scenario. And there's a third factor here, which is that Jaylen Brown can ask for a contract extension in July for over $70 million over the course of 2 years when he's 33, 34 years old. So this is a complex situation that I think the Celtics are trying to sort of stay on the outside of right now.
Okay, we'll see if they get all this settled by next Tuesday. Again, that's when round 1 of the NBA draft is. Winman, let's move on through this windy watch. Trae Young has opted out of his contract. Did that come as a surprise? What's the reaction? What does it mean?
It does not. When Trae Young was traded to Washington in January, it came with the understanding that he would opt out of his contract. It also came with the understanding that he would basically not play for the rest of the season. They listed injuries, but the Wizards lost 26 of the last 27 games, with Trae Young only playing in 5 games after the trade. The expectation is, he may take a meeting or two for appearances' sake. He's going to re-sign with the Wizards, likely on a 3-year, very large contract.
Okay, well, how does that work, Tim? Tell me, the Wizards are looking to go sort of from the absolute depths, as you just said, losing 26 of their last 27 games, to bouncing back quickly. They have the first pick. And what about the Trae Young of it all here, Tim?
Well, I would say, what about the Anthony Davis of it all? And I think that's the question that Rich Paul, his agent, will also ask. Hey, they also traded for AD at the deadline. AD sat out the rest of the season. AD is extension eligible. If you're paying Trae Young, if I'm Anthony Davis, hey, I'd like an extension too. I'd like the comfort of long-term financial security as well. I'm not sure the Wizards are able to, at this point, put that kind of offer on the table for Anthony Davis, but if they aren't, that could be a sticky situation as well.
Okay, and that then circles us all the way to the draft. And Wendy, the Wizards have the #1 pick, and that doesn't seem to be a foregone conclusion what's going to happen there. In fact, the entire top of the draft feels like it's getting a little murky. Talk me through it.
Yeah, everybody is doing their jobs here and holding their cards close to the vest. If the Wizards have made an internal decision of whether to draft A.J. DeBonsa or Darren Peterson, it is not leaked out at all. And I'm not even sure that the players or their agencies know. And so they are holding it, and there's a lot of speculation behind it. And then the Utah Jazz are doing the same, sitting there at the #2 pick. There is some speculation within the league that Utah could consider taking Duke's Cam Boozer at #2, regardless of who the Wizards take at #1. Now, I am extraordinarily skeptical when I hear Danny Ainge and now his son Austin, who run that organization. They are notorious for doing maneuvers at the draft and doing smoke screens and stuff. So my belief is they're taking either DeBancy or Peterson, whoever the Wizards don't take. But that said, there is a sufficient amount of uncertainty that exists in the league right now. And I guess I will have to report to you that there is some wonder amongst league executives whether or not DeBancy or Peterson could actually slip to the #3 pick. But I certainly wouldn't bet on that.
Peterson only took meetings, if I'm not mistaken, with the #1 team, which is Washington. How, if at all, does that factor into this, Tim?
Not at all as far as the Jazz are concerned. And look, last year, Ace Bailey did not visit Utah. There was messaging from his camp that he did not want to be in Utah. He's on the Utah Jazz right now. He was a top player on the board when they came on the clock. They did not hesitate to pick him, and they're glad that they did. If Darren Peterson is a top player on the Jazz's board when they come on the clock, he will be the pick. There is not a certainty at this point that he will be the top player on the board. And I'm told by the Jazz that there is still internal debate and discussion about these 3 players that we're talking about. And it is certainly within the realm of possibility that Cam Boozer could be the pick for the Jazz. That will not be tied to the fact that Darren Peterson didn't visit. If Boozer is their pick, it's because that's the guy that they've determined is the best player on the board.
Dave, you were telling me this morning that the analytics types of scouts, they prefer Boozer, right? Some of them have him the #1 player in this class?
Yeah, the number-driven talent evaluators within the league, a lot of those folks have Cam Boozer as the top player in this draft. And you'll hear a lot of people say that he has the highest floor of these 3. You can certainly argue that Darren Peterson and A.J. DeBanza have a higher ceiling, but there are people within the league who consider Cam Boozer to be the #1 player in the draft.
I like these drafts where it's not quite clear what's going to happen at the top. Many years, and I understand the excitement of that when there's a player like Wembanyama or whatever it is, and everyone knows. But there being this much drama around the top 3 picks, really, I think is fascinating. One more thing for you today. Winman, you know, we've been mixing these in over the last month or so. Throwback Thursday, 13 years ago today. This might be the most consequential shot in NBA Finals history. Game 6 of a series between San Antonio and Miami, that the Spurs are about to win the championship. And instead, off an offensive rebound from Chris Bosh, Ray Allen, from his toes because his heels would have been out of bounds, winds up making the shot that extends it to a Game 7, and Miami ultimately winds up winning it. Winman, that is... We were having this debate, I remember, last week after the tip-in by Anunoby of the greatest and most important shots and plays in NBA Finals history. This thing could easily make an argument for Ray Allen's shot being #1.
Yeah, there's like 7 Hall of Famers on the court, Greeny. Actually, Duncan was on the bench, which was the problem, but 7 Hall of Famers involved, Hall of Fame head coaches. It leads to a great Game 7 where LeBron had one of his all-time great games. Ray Allen with a moment where he tells them to take the rope. They had already laid the rope down around the court to prepare for the Spurs championship celebration. He tells them to go back into the tunnel. They take the champagne out of the locker room, on and on and on. Legendary moment in recent NBA history. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge one. The Anunoby, it caps the greatest comeback and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not diminishing at all. But if he doesn't make that play and the Knicks lose, it's 2-2 in that series. The NBA Finals are over in their own building. Miami loses if Ray Allen doesn't make that shot.
Yeah, this goes right up there with LeBron's chase down block in terms of just a denial of a championship celebration. He misses that shot, the Spurs are celebrating on that floor in Miami.
13 years ago today. All right, guys, much more hoops as we go. And again, we'll be live.